Girl Undercover Episode 10. Written by Julia Derrick. Did you call her yet? I asked Ian as he finished his set of 20 push-ups on a mat at Nikki. I was referring to Ariel, but there was no need to spell that out. He knew exactly who I had in mind. He popped up to his feet, like he had just sprawled out there leisurely reading a book, not pumped the length of his long, lean body up and down at a rapid pace. He ran a hand through his blonde mop of hair that remained in desperate need of a haircut, then looked at me, amused. "Why do you care?" he asked. "Because I want to make sure you do the right thing." And that would be. He arched a brow at me, having placed his fists against his hips. "You calling and asking her out on a proper date?" He smiled. "Well, it's not like you gave me much choice, is it?" The pleased grin on his face told me he wasn't at all mad at me for having done so, though. "So you did call her then?" "Yep, we're going out tonight, actually." I ignored the sudden stab of pain that assaulted my stomach at this revelation. "Oh, really? That's good. What are you gonna do? Dinner?" "Yeah. I'm taking her to a small Italian restaurant on Amsterdam. It's called Gennaro. Very intimate." "That sounds nice." I pointed to a squat rack close to where we were. "Let's go do some pull-ups." We walked over to the rack and Ian immediately jumped up and grabbed one of the bars above his head. As I watched him pull himself up and down, I thought about his upcoming date with Ariel, annoyed with myself that I wasn't happier about it. I had no reason to be bothered in any way, yet that would be the only way to describe how I was currently feeling. Ian landed on the floor next to me, forcing me to stop mulling over it. "What do I do now?" he asked, radiating energy. "Let's do some ab work." We walked over to the other end of the big weight room. "Are you going to show her some of your family's jewels?" I asked, expecting him to say that he didn't really have any jewels to show her. But he just shrugged his shoulders and replied, "Probably not tonight. That would be too early." I stared at him, surprised. "You're already planning on seeing her again? What if the date doesn't go well?" "How can it not go well? She's a little haughty. I'm sure it'll go just fine." He gave me a playful wink. "If you say so," I said, and stopped next to the Roman chair. I wasn't in the mood to keep talking about him and Ariel. Lowering my voice, I said, "I got another text." His face darkening, he froze right as he was about to climb up the chair. "From the same number? What did it say this time?" I leaned closer to him to be sure no one could hear me. It said, "I'm still watching you. Get out while you can." He clenched his teeth. "It's them." "What makes you so sure?" "First they tried intimidating you by pretending to be the rapist, but since that didn't work, they're choosing to be more direct instead." I smiled, feeling much older and wiser than Ian. Okay, so you don't really know then. You're just trying to fit your vision with these texts. I agree it could be them if they actually existed. I thought but didn't say, but it could also easily be some wacko who likes to fuck with my head. I really should look into the people I've given my phone number to in the last couple of weeks. It's not that many. I paused, making a mental note to do this later. And it could also be from someone attached to Nick's murder. I bit my lip as I pondered this some more, and then nodded to myself. That's what I'm thinking. Nick's killers are harassing me. I might be closer to finding them than I'm realizing. "That's exactly right," Ian said. "You are very close to finding out who they are. The only piece missing is you believing it yourself." He leaned closer to me, his lips ending next to my ear, and whispered, "I already told you Adler and their government cohorts are behind his death. The sooner you accept this fact, the better off you are." I sighed and rolled my eyes at him. "No, I wasn't talking about them. I was talking about someone attached to Cardoza." "They may very well be attached to Cardoza. I have yet to determine how big their reach is, though I'm convinced it reaches all around the globe, into most major industries. Ian was clearly not about to let go of his conspiracy theories anytime soon. I crossed my arms over my chest. Listen, it can't be them. It just can't be. Why do you say that? I threw another glance over my shoulder to be sure there weren't any people close by that could overhear us. We were in the clear. Because it makes no sense. If you know so much about them and I'm close to finding out the truth, why not just kill both of us? Especially you, since they know you want to stop them from realizing their vision. That should be easy enough for them, as powerful as they are. Right? If they can plant an article in the Washington Post and get a whole prison to vouch for them, they could have accidents happen to us. Ian gazed out the club's floor-to-ceiling windows, looking pensive. That's very true. And it's also something I often think about, especially lately. Why don't they just kill us? His eyes returned to mine. Of course, they did try to kill you with Bose, remember? We still have no idea if Bose had any ties to them. He smirked. Trust me, he did. Anyway, I wish I knew why they keep me alive, why I'm still waking up every morning and the sun is shining on my face. I have absolutely no idea, because you're right, it would be so much easier to just kill me. But so far they haven't, and they've known that I know what they're up to for more than a year now. That I want to stop them. I can only conclude they have good reasons for wanting to keep me alive. He squeezed my arm. I sincerely hope that goes for you too. Ian's words were still going through my head as I walked back to my apartment several hours later. I refused to believe there was any truth to all his crazy theories, but I also didn't think he was a psycho out to hurt me any longer. The guy was harmless, even if he happened to be an ex-con and former druggie who didn't want to own up to his transgressions. The articles I'd read about him were hardly planted by an evil government faction, which meant he had committed the crime he'd been accused of and sentenced for. That is, unless he had been wrongfully convicted. My hand stopped turning the key I'd stuck into my building entrance as I considered that possibility. That scenario seemed more plausible than the story being just a plant and an entire correctional facility being in on it. Of course, if that was the case, why didn't Ian tell me that? I was more likely to believe that he was set up somehow than his other, far more outlandish claims. Even he must have realized that. One of these days I needed to take a closer look at Ian's past. That should yield some explanations to what he was really all about. Maybe he did come from a family of jewelers and art dealers. But before I did that, I had to get somewhere with my own investigation. As poorly as that went, it was a wonder I had become a detective at all. Never mind as quickly as I had. After I had made myself dinner and was relaxing on my couch, I decided to text the stranger who was harassing me. I had tried calling the number a few more times and, like the first time, a voice recording told me it was not in service. I didn't think a text would result in anything, but I was feeling restless tonight and needed to do something. I typed, "Who are you and what do you want from me?" Of course there was no response. I opened the contacts section of my phone so that I could determine to whom I'd handed out my number over the last few weeks. It turned out that I had only given it to 11 people, all current or potential clients, as well as to Ariel and Emma. I thought. That's fewer than I thought. I should be able to figure out who out of those people it could be. Then I remembered that my phone number was in a folder on the fitness desk that all the trainers could access. In fact, every employee at Nikki, even Adler, could easily access my phone number if they wanted to. I got to my feet and put on some clothes. I decided to go out for a walk. It was nice and warm out for a day in April in New York, and I felt increasingly restless. Something was eating at me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Some fresh air and light exercise would make me feel better, enable me to relax. As always before I went outside, I made sure my Glock was in my hip holster, safely hidden underneath my baggy sweatshirt. I may not be about to go running in Central Park, but I wasn't stupid. Something bad could still happen to me on the streets of the Upper West Side, even though it was supposed to be maybe the safest neighborhood on the island. Well, at least before Spider-Man had run amok up here. Exiting my building, I was pleased to discover that the weather had yet to cool down. I began walking down my block, having no particular destination in mind. I continued up Amsterdam Avenue at a brisk clip and met quite a few people out strolling. My plan was to walk 20 blocks uptown, then make a U-turn and come back home. By then, I should feel better. After about 10 minutes of walking, I spotted the sign to the restaurant Gennaro. That's the place Ian mentioned, I thought, and stopped walking. What time was it? I checked my phone. It was 9:20. Ian and Ariel should still be there if they had come for dinner. Part of me wanted to spy on them, while the other part, a nagging voice in my head, kept telling me that this would make me a stalker. I was not a stalker. I remained in place, a few yards in front of the restaurant, as the two parts of me kept arguing their position. Soon, my depraved self won, and I prepared myself to spy on Ian and Ariel. If I was being honest with myself, I had to admit that I was super curious to see how the date was going. I still couldn't believe Ian was actually into Ariel, having convinced myself that he had only pretended he was to annoy me. She just didn't seem like his type. Well, how do you know what his type is? The nagging voice in my head asked, pissed that it had lost. Sadly, I didn't. Ariel could very well be his type. I snuck up to the first window of the restaurant and stopped right next to it. From there, I would carefully lean forward to scope out the insides of the establishment. Slowly, I leaned toward the big, lit window, well aware that there were often tables by windows and that restaurants loved to seat good-looking couples there. Nick and I had been lucky enough to often get seated by windows. I forced the sharp pain that filled my chest at the thought of Nick to go away. Fortunately, Ariel and Ian did not sit right by the window, but they were still in the restaurant and seated at a table that was close enough. When I had determined this, I retracted my head and walked behind an old phone booth about 5 yards away from the window. I got a good view from this vantage point at the same time as I didn't have to risk that Ian and Ariel spotted me. That would be not only embarrassing, but could also lead to problems. Ariel may not be crazy after all, but I had a feeling she was still a bit of a hothead. It was better if she didn't catch me staring at the two of them through the window. It looked like they were eating dessert at the moment and having a great time, the way they were laughing and talking. Especially Ariel was laughing a lot, throwing her head back every now and then. Ian must be very entertaining, I mused, wondering what exactly they could be talking about. He never made me laugh like that. God, had I been wrong to think he would not like her, only find her to be a pain in the butt. I remained there for another 10 minutes, watching them as they ate and talked, having decided to leave just as Ian paid the bill, and they were both suddenly on their feet. It all went so fast that it seemed a bit odd. Maybe something had happened. I should stay and see if the jolly mood between them had changed as they left the restaurant. Ian was helping Ariel put her jacket back on. Soon, they were headed away from the table. Having realized that the phone booth provided little cover, I rushed behind an SUV parked on the street, peeking around the back of the car toward the restaurant's exit. Any moment now, I should spot them coming out. I shook off the feeling of disgust I had with myself for having turned into a stalker. What I was doing was so wrong, still I couldn't help myself. I needed to know what was going on with these two, what they would do next. Their body language should tell me everything I wanted to know. As expected, they came out a few seconds later. They were talking, but I was too far away to be able to hear much of their conversation. They began walking along the street, Ariel crooking her arm through Ian's in a way that told me they were very comfortable with each other. Even though I had no reason to be jealous, that was just how I felt as the two of them continued up the block. I chewed on my lip, trying to convince myself to turn around and give these two some privacy. That would be the right thing to do. But that other nosier part of me kept urging me to go after them, see what they would do next. My feet started to move in their direction, and soon I was following them. Knowing how Ian had seen me the first time I followed him, I was very careful, keeping my distance and hiding behind house corners, cars and bus stops, anything big enough. The darkness of night was to my advantage, making it easier to stay unnoticed. Soon, we were 10 blocks farther down Amsterdam Avenue, close to Nikki's sports club where Ian and Ariel stopped in front of an apartment building. I quickly slid between two cars on the street and watched through the car windows how they turned to face each other. She was smiling at him, saying something. Holding my breath, I waited for Ian to lean down and kiss the petite woman, who was a lot taller than normal due to the 5-inch heels on her feet. But instead of kissing her on the mouth, he gave her a quick peck on the cheek, said a few words, then turned around and walked away from her. She looked after him for a long moment before finally turning around herself and disappearing into the building. Sitting hunkered down between a Lexus and a Toyota, I watched Ian as he continued down the street. I stayed in place for several seconds after he had disappeared. It took the buzzing of my phone for me to snap out of the stupor I had entered. Standing up, I found the phone in my pocket and checked who had contacted me. "Meet me on the sun deck at the club at 9:30 p.m. April 22nd, and I will tell you everything," the text said. I didn't need to check the number to know who it was from. I still checked to be 100% certain it was from my text stalker. It was, of course. I typed a quick response back, "Who are you?" Staring down at the phone, I waited for it to light up with another text, but it stayed dark. Finally, I got tired of waiting, stuck the phone back into my pocket, and walked back home. When I entered my apartment, my restlessness had gotten even worse as I kept wondering who the hell this person was. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a reply to my most recent text, but the thing remained dead. I thought about what day it was. Friday, April 13th. He wanted us to meet in 9 days then. I could only assume he'd meant the sun deck, also known as the rooftop terrace, at Nikki when he'd said meet me on the sun deck at the club. I would definitely be there, armed and possibly with Ian by my side. I wasn't sure what to do about him. Maybe it was better to go alone. If I told Ian about the text, surely he'd insist on coming along. I kept tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. So many thoughts raced through my mind, the heavy-duty sleeping pills I had taken doing little to knock me unconscious this evening. At some point, I must have passed out at last, though, because when I opened my eyes next, it was morning outside my bedroom window. The first thing I did was check my smartphone. The only text there was from a client, wanting to reschedule a session. As I walked into Nikki an hour later, I spotted Ariel in the cafeteria. I did a double take when I saw who she was talking to. The Senator of North Carolina, Janine Eastwood. They were standing close together, as though having an intimate conversation. Ariel looked agitated, almost scared, while the senator, a stately woman in her 50s dressed in workout attire, looked stern, like a teacher reprimanding a difficult student. I had a few minutes to spare before it was time for me to train my first client of the day, so I walked into the cafeteria and up to the counter where all the drinks were to pick one up. The senator and Ariel were only a few feet away, Ariel with her back to me. As I approached the counter, Janine spotted me and her demeanor changed. The sternness disappeared and was replaced by a soft smile. "When can we meet for our next workout?" she asked Ariel. "Does Wednesday at 8 p.m. work?" Sure, Ariel replied. "Great. Well, I have to go now," Janine said. "It was good talking to you, dear. See you Wednesday then." She patted Ariel's shoulder and walked out of the cafeteria, then disappeared up the stairs to the workout floors. "Is that Ariel's client?" Ariel finished checking something on her phone and turned around so that she faced me. Oh my God, she gasped at the sight of me jerking. Jamie, you scared the crap out of me. Sorry, I said. Are you okay? It hadn't seemed like she was when she had spoken to the senator, but I wasn't about to bring that up. Yeah, I'm fine. I so didn't see you. How long have you been standing there? I just got here and saw you talking to that tall lady. Is she your client? Ariel nodded. Yeah, but we don't train that often. I started to train her a few weeks ago. 8 on Wednesday. That's pretty late. Aren't you here early in the mornings? Ariel grimaced. Yeah, I am. But it's just a one-time deal. Normally, we train during the afternoons, she brightened. I went out with Ian last night, dinner. Can you believe it? I had to make myself return the big smile on her lips. Shame for having stalked her and Ian assaulted me so much? Sure, why not? How did it go? Did you guys have fun? Yeah, we had an amazing time. Hesitation came over her sunny face, which is why I'm so surprised he didn't give me a goodnight kiss after walking me home. I even invited him to come up to my apartment, but he declined. What guy does that? It's never happened to me before. Do you think he might be gay? The words were flying out of her mouth. No, I really don't think he's gay. Maybe he's just being polite and doesn't want to rush things. Not all guys want to hook up on the first date. Ariel looked so hopeful my heart ached. Ian better not be playing with this girl, I thought. Do you really think? So she asked. I forced myself to keep smiling. Yes, in my experience, if a guy's serious about a girl, he wants to take his time. I'm sure that's what Ian is doing. You should text him and thank him for dinner, and chances are you'll know from his answer what the deal is. Okay, I'll do that. Maybe you can also talk to him when you train him next. See what he has to say about the date. He'll tell you the truth, right? I don't know him all that well, but I think he'd at least give me an idea. I'll ask and we'll see. Ariel grabbed my arm. Please do. When are you training him next? Tomorrow. Hey, I've got to go. My client's waiting. Go. Talk to you soon. I left Ariel in the cafeteria, having totally forgotten to buy a drink to bring with me. How did the date with Ariel go? I asked Ian, my smartphone pressed to my ear. It was the afternoon, and I was up on the sun deck at Nikki, enjoying the sunny spring weather while waiting for my floor shift to start. I had decided that I wouldn't be able to wait until tomorrow before I found out what Ian thought of the date. I also wanted to know if he'd happened to spot me as I stalked them. As snarky as he could be, surely he'd drop a hint. Great, he replied. She's a nice girl. A little needy, but nice. Needy. Yeah, the girl's desperate for love and attention. From you or from people in general. To be honest, I couldn't tell. That's interesting. I never get a needy vibe from her whenever we interact, so I'm thinking she's desperate for your love and attention. Ian sighed. I truly hope that's not the case. Why do you say that? Because I'm not into her. What? I thought you told me you thought she was such a little hottie? She is a little hottie, but that doesn't mean I want anything serious. I sat up on my sun chair. Then why did you go out with her and act like you were having such a great time? How do you know I acted like I was having such a great time? Don't tell me you stalked me again, Ian sounded amused. I closed my eyes, the shame coursing through me. I swallowed, determined not to let on what a pathetic person I was. It wasn't like I had intended to stalk them. I just happened to spot the restaurant where they were having dinner and then, unfortunately, one thing led to another. So I said, no, I didn't stalk you. I just assumed you were having a great time since you said the date went great. Did you kiss her at the end? No, I only gave her a peck on the cheek. and thanked her for a lovely evening. I even resisted her invitation to join her for a nightcap. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Like I told you, she's a little haughty, and I'm a red-blooded man in my best years. He chuckled softly. How very gentlemanlike of you, I replied dryly. So what are you going to do now? What do you mean? Are you going out with her again? She texted you and thanked you for dinner, right? Yes, she did. And I replied that it was my pleasure. That's it? No, I'd love to do it again sometime soon or similar. No, if I did that, I'd have to go out with her again, and I don't want to lead her on. You should be pleased with how I'm handling the situation considering your opinion of guys who string girls along. Instead, I can tell you're annoyed. What's up with that? That's because I am annoyed? I don't get why you went out with her if you're not into her. Well then, allow me to explain. I wasn't sure how I felt about her before we went out. That's why people go out on dates to see if they're interested in more. It turned out that I wasn't. But there was also another reason I went out with her. What's that? Yeah. After you pushing us together and making me take her phone number, I really didn't have a choice, did I? There was a distinct acidity to Ian's voice now. I didn't immediately answer. I felt so guilty. He was right, I did push them together. Why did I do something so stupid? Now I needed to come up with a way to fix it. I didn't want to upset Ariel. An image of her hopeful face flashed through my mind and guilt threatened to overwhelm me. Gab, are you still there? Ian asked. Yeah, I am. I'm thinking. About what? How I can fix this situation. Ariel is crazy about you. Now she'll be heartbroken, and it's my fault. Not really. Like you said, I didn't have to go out with her if I didn't want to. I did want to go out with her once. Even if I didn't think I was that interested, I thought it was worth a date to be entirely sure. Especially since you seemed to think it was such a good idea. I couldn't be certain, but it didn't seem like that last sentence had had any sarcasm in it, which was nice. She's a big girl, Gabi, Ian continued. I'm sure she can handle me not wanting to see her again. You didn't really do anything wrong. All you did was facilitate a date between us. That's what she wanted, right? I suppose. How about you tell her something to let her down easy, though? You should have seen her this morning. She was practically beaming. She was so ecstatic after your date. Okay, I'll think of something. Maybe I'll tell her my ex-girlfriend from London is coming to America and that I want to give it another go with her. Yeah, that's a good idea. Hey, speaking of Ariel, guess who she was talking to this morning when I got to the club? Who? Janine Eastwood. In the cafeteria. The senator. Aha. And it looked like they were in the middle of a heart-to-heart-to-heart, in which Ariel looked scared and the senator pissed. I walked up to the food counter to pick up a drink to see if I could hear what they were discussing, but before I could get too close, Janine spotted me, and her entire demeanor changed. How so? She went from stern to friendly and told Ariel she wanted to train this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Ariel told me the two of them have been training for the last couple of weeks, but not that often. Very interesting. Now I think I might have another date with Ariel after all. If she's as into me as you claim, she'll tell me what's going on. You mean so you can see what they were talking about? You think it might have something to do with Adler? Absolutely, don't you? Here we go again. Not really. They could have been discussing anything. I'm not sure it's worth it for you to lead Ariel on only so you can pump her for information. How about I try to talk to her first? She might tell me. Sure, go ahead and try. And do it soon. If you fail, I'll call Ariel and ask her for another date. It might seem cruel to you, but if you knew what I've seen and what I'm trying to stop, you wouldn't think so. For all I know, Ariel might be part of their team. I laughed. Oh yeah? And what exactly would she be doing for them? But even as I said those words in a derisive tone, I remembered how I myself had wondered why Ariel was so eager to become friends with me when she wasn't a friendly person. I already knew it wasn't because she wanted to get close to Ian, since I had yet to start to train him at that point. The only person who knew I was about to start training Ian was my manager and the sales associate who had sold him the sessions. I don't know that yet, Ian said. That's why I want to have another date with her. So I can find out. As I said, let me talk to her first and see what I can dig up. You could always hang around the area when they're training and see what they're talking about. I doubt they'll talk about anything incriminating while I'm around. You don't know unless you try. I might try. And you should try to find out what other government officials might be members at the club. You've had several days to do this. I need to know who else might be here. Please stop stalling, Gabi. It's too important. Fine. I'll have it done by tomorrow. You promise? You have my word? Ariel came out on the sun deck then, wearing a pair of tiny shorts and an equally tiny sports bra. The dark sunglasses on her face were so large they covered half of it. She stretched out on one of the sun chairs close to the entrance and pulled out her phone that she began typing on, completely immersed. I have to go, I told Ian and hung up. I watched Ariel, pondering whether I should go up to her now and ask her about Janine or wait. I decided to wait until it looked like she had finished typing at least. As I waited, I lay back down on my own chair and turned my face to the sun, enjoying the warm rays against my skin, all the while throwing glances in Ariel's direction. By the time I spotted Janine Eastwood, she was already standing next to Ariel's sun chair. With the tall woman towering over her, Ariel appeared even smaller than she was. She instantly put away her phone and turned her face toward Janine, who was saying something to her. Ariel responded something lengthy, looking apologetic while shaking her head slowly. I was at the other end of the spacious sun deck, and the sounds of the city drowned out any conversation the light breeze might have carried in my direction. Even though I was fairly far away, I wished I had a magazine or something to hide behind. If Janine raised her gaze from Ariel and looked straight forward, she would instantly spot me, as there was hardly anyone else on the deck at the moment. But she didn't, she just kept talking and talking to Ariel, who nodded and said something every now and then. All of a sudden, the big woman grabbed Ariel's upper arm and shook her hard as though Ariel was a kid that needed to be punished. Punished severely. What the hell? Before what was happening fully sank into my mind, the senator let go off Ariel, barked something at the smaller woman, and then swiveled around, marching off the sun deck. Ariel watched the glass door the woman disappeared through and rubbed her arm. I looked around the sun deck to see if anyone else had noticed what had just happened, but the 4 other people up there lounging on chairs were still just either reading or keeping their eyes closed as they lapped up the sun. It was impossible to tell if they had seen the little tiff. That must be what it had been. Some kind of argument. I pushed myself off my own chair and walked up to Ariel. I wanted to make sure she was okay. As I stopped next to her, she jerked a little, and her hand left the sore spot on her arm. "Oh hey, Jamie," she said, trying to smile. It looked more like she was feeling sick. "Hey, Ariel," I said. "Are you okay? I saw what that big woman did to you. Is she nuts?" Ariel licked her pouty lips nervously. "No, she just has a bit of a temper. It was nothing." I frowned. "Nothing?" She was shaking you like a rag doll. "Yeah, I know. But really, I'm fine." There was a finality to Ariel's voice that told me she didn't want to discuss it any further. She stretched out like a cat on the sun chair. "Don't you just love this weather? I can't wait for summer to come." "Yeah, it's nice. I think I'm gonna take a nap. I have an hour to kill before my next client. Ariel put her hands behind her neck and turned her face toward the sun. I looked at her for another moment, and when she didn't say anything else, I figured I should leave. Okay, sweet dreams, I said. See you later. Ariel didn't respond. She texted you again, I asked Ian. We were walking up to the 5th floor at the club where we would be doing his workout today. He had just finished telling me that Ariel had contacted him a second time. What did she say? That she wants to go out again, Ian replied. Basically. Really? Wow, I didn't see that one coming. Or actually, maybe I did. She was pretty persistent when she was crushing on Nick. Ian turned to glance at me. Your husband. Yeah, they went out on a date while he and I were undercover. She kept texting him even after he told her he wasn't interested in going out again. What did you reply? I haven't responded yet. Did you get a chance to talk to her yet? No, but I did witness something curious yesterday. As I told him what I had seen transpire between Ariel and the senator, we entered the area where the heavy weights and the bench presses were. She actually shook her, he asked, when I'd gotten to the end of my story. I nodded. Yeah. And pretty hard too. But Ariel acted like it was nothing when I went up to her and asked if she was okay. She said she was fine and then brushed me off, so I left. Something's not right between those two. It doesn't sound like it. When were they going to have their session again? Tomorrow at 8 p.m. That is, if they're still working together. Who knows after that incident? I sure wouldn't be training someone who did something like that to me. I told him to do a set of 50 jumping jacks to warm up. He instantly began jumping. I bet they are, he said, arms and legs moving sideways at a rapid pace. Ian never had a problem maintaining a conversation while working out vigorously. Well, since you haven't found out what their deal is, I'm going to ask her out for this Thursday and coax it out of her. Do you really think that's such a good idea? He sighed. Love, you're giving me no choice. You need to move quicker. A lot quicker. We can't afford to lose more time. And besides, I'd rather tell her in person that I'm back with my ex. I'm not sure a text will do the trick. Not when I'm getting the sense she thinks there might be more between us than there is. What makes you think she thinks that? Just the tone of the text. She didn't really ask me if I wanted to go out with her again. Instead, she named a couple of restaurants she wanted to go to for our next date, so I would know where to take her. Pearls of sweat were forming along Ian's hairline. She actually said, so you would know where to take her. Not verbatim, but a version of that. Wow, that's quite aggressive. Not that I should be very surprised. Ariel might be petite, but that had never stopped her from boldly going after whatever she wanted. And presumptuous. Well, now I don't feel so bad for her any longer. She should just have asked you if you wanted to go out again. Agreed, he finished his jacks. What's next? Let's do some deadlifts. I pointed to another corner of the big gym floor where several barbells were lined up. We went over there and grabbed one that weighed 120 pounds. Ian began squatting while holding the heavy barbell. So I'm thinking I'll pick one of the places she suggested, he said, and hopefully I'll get her to open up before I tell her about my ex. Find out what the deal with the senator is, he lowered his voice. Incidentally, what other government officials do you have for me? I had completely forgotten about going through the rest of the club's members for Ian like I had promised. It had been easy to forget. I really didn't see the point spending more hours combing through Nikki's database. I'd just about had it with his obsessive conspiracy theories. There simply wasn't enough conclusive evidence there was a conspiracy of any kind, and his delusions were seriously holding me back in my own investigation. One day I'd tell him he needed to snap out of it. Get some help if they were remnants of his days as a drug addict. In the meantime, I'd pretend like I had gone through the rest of the database. It wasn't like he could verify that I hadn't. I didn't find anyone else, I said. not meeting his gaze in the mirrored wall before us that we were both looking into. Unless there are ones I'm not familiar with, Eastwood and Chatterley are it. Since I know most of the big names, I don't think I missed any. I spent 3 hours this morning looking. I see, he replied curtly and finished his set of deadlifts. Well, thanks for checking. I turned away from him so he wouldn't see how my cheeks were flaming. Spotting a water faucet a few feet away, I excused myself and said I'd be right back. I took my time drinking water. When I was with him again, my face had returned to normal temperature. Ariel was sitting in the cafeteria when I went down there to have lunch the following Thursday. She waved to me the second I entered. I smiled and walked up to her. There was a big grin on her lips. "Hey," I said and smiled. "You look happy." "I am. Ian and I are going out again tonight." "You are? That's fantastic." Knowing that she'd been the one to make the next date happen, I felt weird adding something along the lines of "I told you he was seriously interested." Instead, I just asked, "Where are you guys going?" "To La Bonne Soup in the West Village." "I've always wanted to go there. Great French restaurant. So cute." "Did Ian pick that place?" Ariel shook her head. "No, I did. I had a few places in mind that I wanted to try out, and he went along with it." "Good for you." Making sure my tone was light, I asked, "Have you guys been in touch a lot?" "Yeah, but only via text. We text all day long." Her brown eyes glittered excitedly. "Really? That's great." I nodded toward the food counter. "I'm starving. I'm gonna get something to eat. I hope you guys have fun tonight." I walked over to the food counter and placed myself behind the last person in line. The cafeteria was hopping with people as it so often did around noon. I found my phone and texted Ian, just bumped into Ariel. "She told me you guys text all day long and that you're going out tonight." It took until I had ordered a salad and was about to pay for it for Ian to respond. "She is texting me all day long. I'm only responding and trying to be polite. I'm anticipating a tough night tonight." I gazed over at the table where I'd seen Ariel. She was still seated there, in the middle of texting someone. I paid for my salad and went back there. "Hey again," I said. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up from her phone. "No, not at all." "Please do." There was a dreamy look on her face. "I just exchanged another text with Ian. He's so sweet." I sat down next to her. "What did he say?" She leaned into me. "Let me show you all his texts." "Okay," I said and looked down at the iPhone with the yellow shell in her hand. She used fingers that had had hot pink nail polish today to click the phone's text icon. A long string of texts appeared on the screen, and, based on the length of them, there was no question Ariel was the one who spent the most time typing out messages. Most of Ian's texts were a couple of words or a short sentence, whereas hers were long paragraphs. This alone should have given her a hint that maybe she was more invested in this budding non-romance than he was. But the way she was giggling and pointing at the different short texts he had sent her that I quickly scanned to make sure she was in fact the driving force told me she clearly had no clue. "Yes, he sure is sweet," I said after I had read a few texts and began eating my salad, regretting that I hadn't gotten a bigger one. I really was starving and doubted that the puny thing in front of me would do much to tame my hunger. "Did you just text him?" "Aha." I told him I can't wait for it to become evening so we can see each other again. Oh, I wanted to tell her that maybe it was best if she cooled it a bit for now, but decided against it. I honestly wasn't sure she could handle it as love-struck as she appeared. I looked at her, sincerely confused. Was it possible that she had actually fallen in love with Ian that quickly? One thing was clear, she was definitely in lust with him. Ian was right, he'd have a tough time letting her down gently. I prayed their going out again would be worth it, lead to us finding out what was going on between Ariel and her client, the senator? Sighing inwardly, I smiled at her. Well, I hope you'll have a great time. I couldn't see Ariel anywhere at the club the following day, and I was there from 8 in the morning till 7 at night. During weekdays, I usually spotted her at least once during all those hours. Had her date with Ian gone so well that he changed his mind about her, leading to the two of them ending up in bed together? Ian and I were supposed to have trained at noon today, but he texted me to cancel his session a couple of hours before, claiming he wasn't feeling well and that he would get back to me to set up our next session. It was only as I got back home and turned on the local news that I found out why I hadn't gotten a glimpse of Ariel all day. She was dead. She'd been found strangled in an alley in Midtown last night. I dropped the wallet I'd removed from my bag to the floor. I was so shocked when I heard the anchor say her name, followed by her photo appearing on the screen. Oh my God. I sank down on my coffee table and listened to what the anchor was reporting about the crime. There are no signs of sexual abuse. The woman's wallet contained credit cards and cash, and she wore diamond studs in her ears when she was discovered. So the assault doesn't appear to have been motivated by robbery. She is believed to have died before midnight. The NYPD is investigating the matter. I got to my feet and ran over to where I'd put my purse that contained my phone. As soon as I found it, I called Ian. He picked up on the fourth ring, sounding groggy, like he had been sleeping. "Hello," he mumbled. "Did you hear what happened?" I asked, my voice frantic. "No, what?" "Ariel was found strangled in an alley in Midtown." "What?" There was some rustling on the other end of the line. "She's dead." "Yes. I just heard it on the local news." "Bloody hell." "Bloody hell. That's what I'm saying. What happened during your date? When did it end?" He cleared his throat. "Slightly before 11. It went well. I found out all kinds of interesting information about her and the senator. Things that will shock you." "Really? Why didn't you call me to tell me about it?" "I was planning on telling you when I saw you for our session today, but when I woke up I was sick. Food poisoning most likely," he huffed. "I should have known that would happen when I saw the C rating at the restaurant. They kept the sign hidden." "I'm sorry. Food poisoning sucks." "It sure does. But I'm much better now. Sleeping most of the day helped." "Good. So what did you find out?" "Among other things, that both Ariel and the senator are part of the conspiracy, exactly like I suggested. They wanted Ariel to spy on us, find out what we were up to by becoming friends with you, and date me. Essentially keep tabs on our every move. She told Janine Eastwood that she didn't think I was that interested in dating her, and that's why Janine grabbed her and shook her. From what I understand, the senator has a bad temper." I couldn't stop myself from laughing. "You're kidding me, right? So now Ariel was part of this so-called conspiracy." "That's what she told me, and, as I'm sure you understand, she has no reason to lie about such a thing." Unfortunately, I couldn't argue with that point. Still, I wasn't about to concede it either, especially since Ian had lots of reasons to lie about it. "Do you think Janine has anything to do with her death?" I asked instead. "Probably. Did they say it seems like a robbery?" "No, and not like a sexual assault either." Ian clicked his tongue. "Incredible. They're not even trying to make it seem like something else. I'm not sure Janine herself had something to do with the assault, but surely it's someone involved with Adler and the others. Maybe they used a professional hitman?" "But why would they have her killed?" "That's pretty drastic." "Because she wanted out. She wanted to help me destroy what they were creating. After our first date, she had a change of heart." Ian sighed heavily. "The poor thing really had a huge crush on me. It wasn't easy having to tell her I was getting back with my ex. All things considered, she took it pretty well though." Really? So she actually told you she wanted to help you destroy what they were creating. I had a hard time saying these things in a straight voice. I thought it was all so preposterous. How did you get on that subject in the first place? She broke apart when I began asking her about Janine. Why Janine had shaken her the way you described. Suddenly, everything came pouring out of her. We should meet up somewhere so I can give you more details. I checked the time. It was only 8. Okay, let's have dinner somewhere. I haven't eaten yet, though after hearing about Ariel, I kinda lost my appetite. Is there any way you can bring the police reports filed about her case? There should be some initial ones. We should be able to get to them using my laptop, as long as the place we go to has internet access. Where do you want to meet? There's a good place where we can have a lot of privacy on 72nd between Columbus and Amsterdam. It's called Aroma. They have great Wi-Fi connection. See you there in 15 minutes. I disconnected the phone and put my sneakers back on. Before I rushed out of my apartment, I attached my hip holster and stuck my Glock there. 2 minutes later, I was jogging toward the casual eatery where I had told Ian to meet me. As I jogged along the street, the thought swirled through my mind. Was Ian telling the truth? I wished there was someone who had overheard them talk that could verify all the stuff he claimed Ariel had told him. I laughed without mirth. Why didn't I stalk them last night? Now I just had to take Ian's word for it, as insane as it sounded that she was a spy for Adler and their government cohorts. I couldn't help but think it was very convenient that the one person besides Ian who knew about the supposed conspiracy died before I could hear it from her myself. What if Ian himself killed her? Maybe he snapped because she got on his nerves, somehow pushed his buttons? Ariel had a way of pushing people's buttons. The very thought of this chilled me all the way to the bones, despite that it was 70 degrees out still, and I was wearing a big sweater over my tights and top to hide my gun. As much as I didn't want to believe this, I had to acknowledge that it was still possible considering how intense Ariel could be. More possible than the idea that she was a spy for Adler who had suddenly experienced a change of heart. I didn't even believe the damn conspiracy existed, so it had to be Ian who killed her. I turned the corner and spotted Aroma halfway down the block. I slowed my pace to a walk, not eager at all to go in there any longer. Oh God, I don't want him to be a killer. Not now that I had finally begun to trust that he was essentially a good person, albeit an extremely kooky one. Taking a couple of deep breaths, I made myself keep walking toward the coffee shop. Surely there was another explanation to her death. I shouldn't immediately jump to the conclusion Ian was a murderer. I had been wrong about him before when I had suspected him, hadn't I? Someone else could easily have killed her. A girl like Ariel, who wasn't very popular among people in general, had surely amassed several enemies over the years. Just in the months I was undercover the first time, I could think of a few. If it came to me that quickly, there must be more people that carried a grudge against her. I nodded to myself, feeling relieved. Yes, it must be someone she had rubbed the wrong way somehow. Bad enough that they wanted to kill her. I had soon arrived at the coffee shop's front and spotted Ian seated at one of the tables close to the entrance where no one else sat. His laptop was before him, and he was looking down at the screen, fully immersed. I grabbed the doorknob and entered. Ian looked up as I stood in front of him. "Hey," he said, his face a lot paler than normal, which I assumed must be from having been sick. The sight made me calm down further, at least it didn't appear like he had lied about getting food poisoned. He tilted his head and scratched his unshaven chin. "Are you feeling okay?" "Yeah, why?" "You're staring at me. Do I have something funny on my face?" "No, you're fine." I walked around the table so I could sit next to him. "Are you able to get to the reports with that computer?" "Yes, it was surprisingly easy." "Okay, that's good. Anything of interest?" "Not much. Just the basics: location, time and cause of death, and so forth. No suspects as of yet." I grimaced. Figures. Strangulation is still the cod, correct? I gazed at the screen and read some of the text there. For an initial report, there was a lot written. Correct. Time of death is between 11:30 and midnight. When did you guys part again? A little before 11. We shared a cab to the Upper West Side, and she asked for me to drop her off at a Duane Reade so she could buy some stuff before going home. She took a cab with you to the Upper West Side? Wasn't she found in an alley in Midtown? Where exactly did you drop her off? At Columbus Circle, Ian narrowed his eyes and pursed his lips. Maybe she forgot something at the restaurant and went back down there to pick it up. Or maybe you guys never took a cab together, I thought. The only way for me to know that Ian had been in a cab at the time he stated would be if he used a credit card so I could see the charge. I wasn't about to ask him about that right now, though, so instead I said, that could be. I'm getting a latte and something light to eat. What do you want? Just a ginger ale. Ian patted his stomach. I'll be lucky if I can keep that down. My stomach is still not back to normal. Coming right up. An hour later, we were done discussing the case. When I left Aroma, I was already planning in my head how to further investigate Ariel's death. And I was doing that on my own.